I never thought a place I bought to escape stress would become the center of the ugliest betrayal of my life. The vacation home was never meant to be a business. It was a quiet lake house I saved for over a decade to buy, one place that felt truly mine. I worked overtime, skipped holidays, and lived below my means while my sisters lived loudly, constantly upgrading cars, phones, and lifestyles. When I finally signed the papers, I didn't tell many people. I just wanted peace. The house sat near a calm blue lake, surrounded by pine trees and silence. I paid every dollar myself. The mortgage, the taxes, the repairs, the furniture, all me. I even kept receipts in a separate account just for it. I went there alone at first, learning the creaks in the floors, fixing the dock, painting the porch. It became my reset button. When life got loud, I went there. My sisters found out 6 months later. It wasn't even from me. A cousin posted a photo from a weekend I'd invited him to help fix the roof. The comments exploded. Within hours, my phone was buzzing. At first it was congratulations. Then it shifted. They wanted to visit. I said yes, because they were family. I shouldn't have. The first weekend they came, they arrived late, loud, and empty-handed. They criticized everything. The furniture was cheap. The dock was unsafe. The internet was too slow. I brushed it off. I cooked, cleaned, and tried to enjoy the lake. But I noticed how they walked through the house, opening drawers, checking closets, whispering to each other. On the last night, over wine, my oldest sister casually said, "You know, this place could make serious money." I laughed and said I wasn't interested. That's when the tone changed. They started sending me listings of similar homes being rented out. They talked about missed opportunity. They said it was selfish to let it sit empty when the family could benefit. I reminded them it wasn't empty. I used it, and I paid for it. A week later, they invited me to dinner. I thought it was to clear the air. Instead, it was an ambush. They had spreadsheets. My middle sister talked about fairness. My youngest talked about vision. They said since we grew up together, anything big like this should be shared. They said emotional support counted as ownership. They said because they helped me become who I am, they deserved a say. Then they said the word that made my stomach drop. Owners. They wanted full control of the vacation home so they could rent it out year-round. They said I could still visit if I gave notice. They said profits would be split fairly, though they never defined what fair meant. They said they'd handle management, bookings, and marketing. All I had to do was sign over partial ownership. I refused. Calmly. Clearly. That's when the masks came off. They accused me of being greedy. Of forgetting where I came from. Of thinking I was better than them. They said I was hoarding wealth. They said the house didn't feel like it belonged to just one person. I reminded them that legally, it did. That's when they tried something else. They went to our parents. Within days, my phone rang nonstop. My mother cried. My father lectured. They said family shouldn't fight over property. They said compromise was love. They said I could always buy another place, but my sisters needed this opportunity now. Needed. I asked if anyone planned to reimburse me for what I paid. There was silence. Then my oldest sister sent me an email. She had somehow gotten a copy of the property listing from years ago and claimed my name was misspelled on one document. She said that could complicate things. She suggested it would be easier if we fixed it by adding their names. That's when I realized this wasn't about family. It was about control and money. I stopped responding emotionally and started documenting everything. Messages, emails, voicemails. I contacted my lawyer friend, who reviewed my documents and laughed. Everything was airtight. The house was 100% mine. No loopholes. No mistakes. But my sisters weren't done. They showed up unannounced one Friday while I was at work. A neighbor called to say there were people trying to unlock the house. They claimed they had permission. When I confronted them, they said they were checking on their investment. I told them to leave. They didn't. I had to call local security. That night, my family group chat exploded. I was painted as the villain. They said I humiliated them. That I chose strangers over blood. That I was tearing the family apart over a simple vacation house. I said nothing. Then the threats started. They hinted at taking legal action. They hinted at telling people I was unstable. They hinted at damaging the house if I didn't cooperate. One message said, "If you won't share, maybe no one should have it." That message changed everything. I installed cameras. I changed the locks. I informed local authorities of potential trespassing. I stopped answering calls. And quietly, I started planning. Because I knew one thing for sure. If they wanted to treat my home like a business, then I would stop treating this like a family disagreement. I would protect what was mine. And if they pushed harder, they were going to learn something they never expected. I wasn't the weak sibling anymore. And I wasn't going to lose. The silence after I cut contact felt strange at first, like standing in the calm before a storm. I didn't announce boundaries. I simply enforced them. My sisters noticed immediately. When calls went unanswered and messages stayed unread, they escalated. One of them emailed my workplace pretending to be concerned about my mental health. Another tried to contact my bank, claiming to be a co-owner of my assets. That move backfired fast. The bank flagged the attempt and notified me. That single notification confirmed something important: they were no longer bluffing. They were actively trying to take what wasn't theirs. I took a week off work and went to the lake house. Not to relax, but to prepare. I met with a local property manager and a real estate attorney recommended by my lawyer friend. I explained everything, from the family pressure to the threats. The attorney listened quietly, then asked a question that stuck with me. "Do they have keys?" I nodded. He didn't say "I told you so." He didn't need to. By the end of that day, every lock was replaced. Security cameras covered every angle: driveway, dock, back porch, even the side path through the trees. I added motion sensors and alerts straight to my phone. I posted no trespassing signs, something I never imagined doing against my own family. But the attorney reminded me, intention doesn't matter in court. Documentation does. While I was there, I discovered something that made my hands shake with anger. The spare bedroom closet had been disturbed. Not ransacked, but searched. Boxes moved. A folder missing. That folder contained copies of renovation receipts and contractor agreements. I knew exactly who had taken it. When I confronted my sisters in writing, they denied everything. Then one of them slipped. She referenced a contractor by name, someone I had never mentioned. I saved that message. A few days later, a stranger emailed me asking about renting the house for a long weekend. Confused, I asked how they found it. They sent a link. My stomach dropped. My sisters had listed my home on a short-term rental site using old photos from the cousin's visit. They described themselves as owners managing a private family lake retreat. They were taking bookings. I contacted the platform immediately and provided proof of ownership. The listing was taken down within hours. But the damage was done. 2 bookings had already been accepted, and one family was due to arrive that Friday. That Friday was when everything exploded. I drove up early and waited. When the renters arrived, confused and frustrated, I explained the situation calmly and showed them documentation. They were understanding, angry at the deception, not at me. While I was helping them find alternate lodging, my sisters showed up. They didn't expect me to be there. The confrontation was loud. They accused me of sabotaging them. They said I embarrassed them in front of strangers. One of them screamed that I was ruining their only chance to finally get ahead. I asked how stealing my property counted as getting ahead. That question only made things worse. Neighbors came out. Cameras recorded everything. When I told them they were trespassing and needed to leave, they laughed. One of them said, "You won't do anything. You never do." That's when I called the sheriff. Watching my sisters argue with law enforcement was surreal. They kept insisting it was a family matter. The sheriff didn't care. Ownership papers ended the discussion. They were given a formal trespass warning. One more violation, and it would become an arrest. As they drove away, my youngest sister leaned out the window and shouted, "This isn't over." She was right. The next week, extended family turned against me. Stories circulated that I had scammed my sisters out of their inheritance. That I was exploiting them. That the house was bought with family money. None of it was true, but truth didn't matter. Emotion traveled faster. Then came the lawsuit notice. They were suing me for unjust enrichment and emotional damages, claiming they were promised shared ownership verbally. My attorney smiled when he read it. "This won't go anywhere," he said. "But we can make it stop." He filed a counterclaim for attempted fraud, identity misrepresentation, trespassing, and loss of income due to the fake rental listings. We included screenshots, emails, platform takedown notices, and camera footage. Every lie they told became evidence. Court dates were set. Suddenly, the tone shifted. Apology texts arrived late at night. They said things got out of hand. They said lawyers made everything worse. They said we should settle privately. One even cried on a voicemail, saying she just wanted things to go back to how they were. I didn't respond. The stress took a toll, but something else grew in its place: clarity. I saw them clearly for the first time, not as sisters, but as people willing to burn me down if it benefited them. Then my attorney called with news. During discovery, we found out they had already spent money from the fake bookings. They had also contacted a real estate investor, trying to pitch the house as a joint family asset for a profit-sharing deal. Emails confirmed it. That crossed a legal line. The court didn't look kindly on that. As the hearing approached, their confidence evaporated. They asked for mediation. They asked to drop everything. They asked for forgiveness. I agreed to mediation, not because I wanted peace, but because I wanted resolution. When we sat across the table, they looked smaller, tired, defensive. For the first time, they weren't demanding. They were negotiating. I made my terms simple. They would publicly retract their claims to family and extended relatives. They would reimburse legal fees. They would sign a formal acknowledgement that the house was solely mine and that any future attempt to claim ownership would result in immediate legal action. And they would never contact me about the property again. They hesitated. Then they signed. As we left, my attorney leaned over and said, "This isn't the end. But it's the beginning of the end." I believed him. Because what my sisters didn't know yet was that I had one final move left. And it would change everything. They thought they were entitled to. The mediation agreement was signed, sealed, and legally binding, but peace didn't come with it. What came instead was something colder and far more permanent: distance. My sisters stopped calling, not because they accepted responsibility, but because they had lost leverage. The family retraction helped clear my name, but the damage to relationships was already done. I stopped attending gatherings. I stopped explaining myself. I focused on protecting what I built. What they never asked, and never knew, was why I had bought the vacation home in the first place. It wasn't just a getaway. 2 years before all of this exploded, a developer had quietly approached me about land around the lake. Resorts were coming. Infrastructure funding had already been approved, but it wasn't public yet. I didn't jump immediately. I researched. I waited. Then I bought the house, not as a flip, but as a strategic hold. I never told anyone because I didn't want opinions or hands in my pocket. When the county finally announced the development plan, property values around the lake surged overnight. My house doubled in estimated value in less than a month. That announcement hit the local news. And then it hit my family group chat. The same sisters who had signed documents agreeing never to contact me about the house suddenly just wanted to talk. My phone filled with messages I didn't answer. One of them showed up at my parents' place crying about how unfair life was. Another sent a message saying she was proud of me and always believed in me. It would have been funny if it hadn't been so predictable. I stayed silent. Instead, I met with my attorney and the developer. I negotiated from a position of strength, something my sisters had never seen me do. I didn't sell immediately. I leased part of the land. I kept the house. I structured the deal so the property generated steady income while appreciating long term. It was clean, legal, smart. The first check cleared 2 months later. That was the moment I finally felt the weight lift off my chest. Not because of the money, but because I had proven something to myself. I didn't need to bend to keep peace. I didn't need to sacrifice to be loved. And I didn't need to explain my success to anyone who felt entitled to it. The final confrontation came unexpectedly. I ran into my oldest sister at a grocery store near my parents' town. She looked tired, older, smaller than I remembered. She tried to smile like nothing had happened. Asked how I was. Commented on the weather. Then, quietly, she said she never meant for things to go that far. I told her I believed her. That surprised her. I said intentions didn't erase actions. That trust doesn't regenerate just because time passes. That family isn't a title you use when it's convenient. She asked if there was any chance we could fix things. I told her the truth. We already had. By stepping back, she didn't argue. She just nodded. A week later, my parents asked if I would come by for dinner. I agreed, with conditions. No ambushes. No conversations about money. No guilt. Just a meal. They accepted. That dinner was quiet, polite, careful. My parents apologized, not for taking sides, but for not stopping things sooner. I accepted that apology, but I didn't promise anything else. Healing doesn't come from words alone. As I drove back to the lake house that night, I realized something important. The house no longer felt like a battleground. It felt like what it was always meant to be, a place I earned, protected, and grew into. The following summer, I spent more time there than ever. I swam in the lake at dawn. I sat on the porch at night, listening to the quiet. The cameras stayed. The locks stayed. Boundaries stayed, so did my peace. Occasionally, I'd hear updates through distant relatives. My sisters had struggled. One had tried a business that failed. Another blamed everyone but herself. They told people I had changed. They were right. I had learned that saying no isn't cruelty. That protecting yourself isn't selfish. That success doesn't require permission. And the house? It's still mine. Not because I fought harder, but because I finally stopped letting anyone convince me that what I built was up for debate.